Hello 7th and 8th graders. This is Skill Builder 2. Thanks for watching. I hope everyone is having a great day. Now before anyone says anything, I know I was wearing the same shirt in your last Skill Builder video. That was not intentional, but you know, it is a nice shirt, so hopefully everyone's okay with seeing it twice. And I am at a different location. I'm in my elementary classroom over in the elementary school, so hopefully that makes up for it. But anyway, moving on, you should have out Vacation March. I handed this out in class, and this is what your Skill Builder will be on today. Now, we are going to go through this using the STARS method that we talked about last time. But first, we're actually going to look at something that is in this piece that became apparent in class that some of us really need to work on. And so we're going to take some time to work on that right now. And I'll expect you to have it down or at least have improved on it by the time we talk about this next day one. Remember, I know we're still getting into this routine, this brand new routine for all of us, so thank you for being patient. But today is day one. You have until the next day one to watch this video and learn the material, and then next day one, we will start working on this in class together. But you have to watch it and practice it on your own so that you know what's going on next time, okay? So, let's go over something really important, which is how to play the notes low G, A, B, and C. Of course, as 7th and 8th graders, you all know that every note in the musical alphabet, there are multiple of each note on your instrument. And so you know, for example, how to play two Ds. You play them both in the D major scale. So G, A, B, and C, I'm talking about the low ones. And for violin, viola, cello, those notes all occur on your G string. Bass, it's a little different. I'll get to yours in a second. But if you play violin, viola, or cello, the notes G, A, B, and C are all played on one string, on your G string. And you can see I have it drawn up here what it's going to look like when you put your fingers down. You have open G, and then every one of us, we play A with one finger. And then this is where it's a little bit different, but cello, this is 3 and then 4, right? And violin and viola, this is 2 and then 3. So 1, 3, 4 for cello, 1, 2, 3 for violin, viola. This might be old news for some of you, but I want to make sure we all really understand how to play these notes. Bass, your first note, the G, is actually on your E string. So I'd have E string up here, but you're not going to play E. You're going to play 2 fingers on E. That note is G. So 2 on E, then open A, 1 finger on A is B, and 2 fingers on A is C. So a little bit different for bass, but all of us should be able to play those notes with confidence. We should be able to play them in tune with confidence, actually. Let me grab my instrument here. When you play these 4 notes, they sound like the beginning of the G major scale. That's because they are the beginning of the G major scale. If you're not confident with those notes, take a minute to pause the video and practice playing them. They should sound just like I played them. Of course, if you play cello or bass, they'll be lower, but the same pitches, right? But you should be able to play those with confidence. It should sound like the beginning of a G major scale. There is more to these notes, though, and I think this is where some of the difficulty comes in for us. It's not just playing them and playing them in tune, it's reading them and knowing which note is which. So if you take a look at Vacation March, I intentionally picked this because it has all 4 of those notes somewhere in this piece. If you look at measure 25, and if you're someone who's really having a hard time with this, I would take a pencil out and write this down while I'm telling you. Measure 25, that is G. That's the low G we just learned. However I told you to play it, either open for violin, viola, cello, or 2 fingers on E for bass. That's that G, measure 25. Move over to measure 26, that's A. And most of your music probably has some fingerings in it, which is a nice help for you, but later on it does not have fingerings, and in our orchestra music it probably will not have fingerings. Move on to measure 27, that's B. Measure 28, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if that was C? Then we'd have them all there. But measure 28 is back to G. But measure 29, that first note, is C. So in those 5 measures, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, we see all 4 of those notes. And they continue through that line and actually down lower into a measure in the 40s, like high 30s and 40s. So you are going to get a lot of practice with these notes. And I'm expecting that we are going to get better. If this is something you're struggling with, put the time in now. By the end of 7th and 8th grade, you should be able to read these and feel very confident about them because they're all over the place in music in high school. If you are still struggling, you can always come see me for help. I'm happy to help you, give you some other tips. And really the best tip is to just practice and just play it. So I'll sit down with you and we can play through it together. But like we said in class, you live in 2022 in the age of technology. So if you're still struggling, let's say you forget everything I say and you go to practice, all you have to do is say, Alexa, how do you play the note A on the G string on violin? And if you're watching this at home, I might have just set off some of your Alexas, I'm sorry. But go and look it up on the internet. You can find all of this information on your own if you don't want to listen to me and you want to find it from someone else. And that's okay, I just want you to learn it. We're going to move on from that, but I expect, like I said, everyone should know how to play G, A, B, and C. So I should be able to give you a sight reading with some of those notes next week, and you should feel confident about it. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt your lesson, but I think you're going to like what I have to say, so make sure you stick with me. I appreciate how hard everyone is working to adjust to this new lesson format, and so sometimes I want to give you the chance to be rewarded for doing the things I've asked you to do. And so this week, you are going to be able to enter into the 90s candy giveaway. I have all of these different 90s candies that were super popular when I was a kid, and I thought this would be a fun thing for you to have a chance to win. So one person from each class will win to pick one of these that they'd like to have as a prize, and then there, of course, will be plenty extra for us to do this again in a future week. But to enter, all you have to do is by the next day one, because that's when you have until to watch this video, send me an email, and all it has to say is, hey, I watched Skill Builder 2. And that's how I'll know you watched this, and you'll get entered into the contest. Now, even if you're not super into this candy and maybe you don't want one, send me the email anyway. That way I know you watched the video, and if you happen to win, you can give your prize to a friend. So speaking of friends, it's going to be very tempting to want to just tell your friends to email me so that they can get entered into the contest. And there's two things about that I wanted to tell you. First of all, the more people who are entered, the less of a chance you'll have to win. So don't just go around telling people to enter. It'll actually make your chance of winning less. But the second thing is about being a good friend, because I understand you might want some of your friends to have a chance to win. And so being a good friend would be encouraging them to do the thing they should be doing, which is what you're doing right now, watching the video so that they can find out about the contest, right? So if you want to be a good friend, encourage your classmates to watch the video, and then they'll have a chance to enter the contest. By just telling them to send me an email, you're actually encouraging them to do something they shouldn't be doing, slacking on their work. And so make sure you're just being a good friend by telling your classmates to watch the video, and that way the contest will be fair. It'll be just people who watched the video and did what they were supposed to do, okay? So send me that email by the next day one, and we're going back to your lesson. Let's move on to our stars from last week. We are going to look through Vacation March, talk about stars, and then play it, and then you'll have the week to learn Vacation March. Starting with sharps and flats, which is another way of saying the key signature. Take a look at the beginning of Vacation March. You'll see two sharps at the beginning, F sharp and C sharp. That means we're playing in the key of D major. String players love this key. This is every string player's favorite key because it's the easiest one to play. It's normally the first one you learn. And so Vacation March starts in the key of D major. But remember I said last week the key signature can change. And as you look through this piece, you'll see it does. Measure 25. One of those sharps has been taken away. Now we just have F sharp. This is the key of G major. Now don't worry, this is probably every string player's second favorite key. The thing that is tough about this one is you have to remember that you have C naturals on the A string. So when you are playing on A, it's for violin and viola, it's a close 2 on the A string. Cello, it's 2 fingers. Bass, you're actually going to have to, we talked about that. Your A string is lower than your other string, so bass, yours is easy peasy. We already talked about that. But you want to make sure all of your C's are natural. However, looking through this, you never play on the A string unless you're bass at measure 25, so you actually are not going to have to worry about that right now. But the key does change, and if you had notes on the A string, violin, viola, cello, you would have to make sure there is C naturals. Some of our music in class has that, and I'm always yelling, low 2, low 2. It's not because I'm crazy, it's because the key signature says to do it. Let's move on to time signature. Remember last week with, why am I forgetting the name of the piece that you had to play? It was Twilight Serenade. There we go. It's been a little while since I filmed that video. So with Twilight Serenade, it started in the time signature of 4/4, which is a very common time signature, 4 beats in every measure, and then it moved to the time signature of 3/4. The same idea, but there's 3 beats in every measure. If you look at the time signature for Vacation March, it is in 2/4. Hopefully you can see the measures look a lot shorter than most music you've seen before. That's because in the time signature of 2/4, there are 2 beats in every measure. So just 2 quarter notes worth of notes. So sometimes there's 2 quarter notes, sometimes there's a half note, sometimes there's 1 quarter note and 2 eighth notes, but it's 2 beats worth of notes in one measure. So it looks a little different. It actually sounds and plays very similar to 4/4, and hopefully you'll see that as we go through this. Accidentals, the A. You should be very happy as you're looking through this. There are no accidentals in your part. You had plenty of that in Twilight Serenade, so I wasn't worried about giving you a piece without accidentals for this week. Moving on to rhythm. This should be pretty straightforward rhythm. There's lots of half notes, lots of quarter notes, lots of eighth notes. There's one thing about rhythm, it could also fall under signs, but we're going to talk about it here with rhythm, is something called a tie, and you see it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in this piece of music. Take a look at the top line, follow it all the way to the last 2 measures of the top line. There you have the note high D, and you have a half note high D in one measure, and in the next measure you have a quarter note high D, and they are connected with a tie. When you have a tie, it means that you hold that note for the length of the notes added together. So 2 plus 1 is 3. You hold that note for 3 beats. You don't move your bow to re-articulate the second note. It sounds like one big long note. So a 3-beat note normally would be a dotted a dotted half note. In this case, we can't have a 3-beat note in the measure because the time signature is 2/4. So the way to get around that is they have a half note and a quarter note, and they are tied together. I want everyone to remember what a tie is called and what it does for next time. And finally, signs. Looking through our music to see if there's anything that we don't recognize, or we do recognize, but we just have to know to do it. We have to follow what the music says to make sure we play it accurately the way they want us to. There's a few different things you might see. First of all, you might see some notes that have accents under them. An accent is different than an accidental. An accent looks like this. It's under several of the notes, especially towards the end. When you have an accent under the note, it means to just put a little extra oomph behind it. So it's going to be a little more sharp and pointed at the beginning of the measure, accented at the beginning. The next thing you're going to see, and this does not apply to bass. So bass, you actually just have regular pizzicato like we have done before in the section I'm about to tell you. But everyone find measure 35 and count 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. You have 3 notes in 39 and 40 that have a plus sign over them. The plus sign means left hand pizzicato. And let me show you how that works. You notice that the notes are A, D, so they're open strings. Instead of doing pizzicato with your right hand, and that's what bass is going to continue to do, you are going to use the fingers of your left hand to pluck. It works best normally to use your 3rd or 4th finger. It does not work well to use your 1st finger, although that is what most people try to do. So I'm telling you right now, use 3 or 4. So it's A, D. It's going to look and sound like this. So you just pull it across. But you have to pull up a little bit, because if you pull totally across, you get all of the strings. So it's an across and up. That might be something you want to pause and practice. It's a pretty cool technique. Anytime you see a plus sign, left hand pizzicato. By the way, you can do left hand pizzicato with putting fingers down too. It's just a little more advanced. So we will not do that today, but I just wanted you to know you can do that. The other symbol, the final thing we're going to talk about, is at the end of the music. It says D-S al fine. Last week in Twilight Serenade, it said D-C al fine. That means da capo, that's what D-C stands for. Go to the beginning and play until you see fine. D-S al fine is a little different. It means to go to the sign that's at measure 9. It's called the segno sign. It looks kind of like an S. So it's at measure 9, and then play until the fine. So instead of going to the beginning, you go to the sign. A fun way to remember this, D-S al fine means go to the sign. That's what D-S could stand for, if you wanted to be kind of silly about it. So you go back to the sign, play until fine. So when we play this all the way through, which I'm about to do, you start at the beginning, you go to the ending, and then you go back to measure 9 and play until the fine, which is in measure 24. Okay? So that's everything. We talked about our notes on G that everyone should know for next time. We looked at stars as we went through Vacation March, and I'm about to play Vacation March. You can see it says this should be allegro, which means fast, with enthusiasm. I'm going to play it slightly less than allegro, not quite as fast, but I'll still have enthusiasm. But because we're learning this and I want you to be able to play along with me, I'll do it a little on the slower side, since for most of you this is probably your first time playing this. So here's Vacation March. You can either listen or play along with me, and then take some time to practice. Remember, our usual lessons, back when I pulled you out from class for a lesson, was 40 minutes. It looks like this video is going to be about 16 or 17 minutes, and so that leaves you some extra time, about 25 minutes, to practice through this. And then that would basically get you the same amount of work as if you came to a lesson, which is the goal here. If you have questions, I'm available 10th period, but here's Vacation March all the way through. 1, 2, 1, 2. That is Vacation March. Sorry, something was rattly on my instrument, but that should at least give you the idea of what it should sound like. Work on this. Next day 1, we will practice it together in class, and I'll see you guys in class.